Tiffany for you know about Better News TV. So you best when you subscribe to Better News TV, I best subscribe, no one like, no one share, no one turn on notification bell on Sabe update be a bayano on Sabe to Miaka. And some idea be some Mabobuano concerning the school feeding program. And che bia na Caterers in the Babontin because say for the past 1 to 2 years na aban ne ntua omoka and aduane na no mokoso omo and because of say aban ne ntua omoka nti omo nya ska enkotua ennioma na omo gi free farmers wono ana say those businessmen na omo credit omo nnioma omo nya ska ntua nti abaye aniwuo ne aniguase ama omo Caterers no their society where they live, where they get their goods from, because of so and because of Sadi and Intino, no aduane man colano and feed mo and colano so a common do more school and teach you Ashanti region Hanum say the petition eba Ashanti regional minister na mine forky womo pine no more and nini crowd reply our demo. And these women were on strike, that is a sit-down strike. They were quiet, sitting down without working to embark on that strike. But Oma who said aban we nya ban sit-down strike bet me a kenyano. I was so no amana betue skana mo motimi atwa omo nyuma. Na even kwa aban no ombu omo to that extent say the omunyina is a contract. Said on any teachers, nurses, any other bank government workers no are in that contract no. But abano with their aspect na abano does not respect their work concerning the contract they have with the government. And I'm saying they have Oman announced a national strike which will be commenced not only in Ashanti region but all the various regions that they are practicing that school feeding program. And with this strike, ama so be our students and so a school for no and import our for no. In fact, everybody is affected because we are talking about our children in school. And the mepe say over subscribe to Better News TV. No I like, no I share, no I turn on notification bell. Sabaya news we be call nationwide. Sabaya are buying also with the help of this media of Better News, a buying benya like the insight of it. Sabaya are coming in the help of this Caterers and Sabaya ye man so home. Now, apart from that issue, there is another issue be concerning a SIM card registration. Omo went me and link here now. Omo register almost someone. With the coming of this month, telecommunicators now coming out with over 11 million customers. Omo me register yeah. Ye betra almost someone they can't operate. And the telecommunicators also bon say like omo brana. Like register sebeya they won't be cut off from the network for them for that to affect their business. And also there was one package be MTN zone etiko recently and also some news
of the world. Details now. Nanda, Caterers in charge of school feeding program have actually declared a nationwide strike. The leader of the Caterers, Gifty Esamoah, says that members are not returning to the kitchen until government responds to their concerns.
School feeding caterers are public servants like teachers, police, doctors, nurses, and other employees that provide state services to the public, but are being discriminated against. Can anyone just sack a teacher or a nurse? Can government refuse to pay teachers or nurses even for 1 month? Why are they doing the opposite when it comes to caterers? A contract is a contract, and our human rights must not be abused because we are caterers. Are we not human beings? Are we not citizens of Ghana? Are we not serving the nation? The conditions of services payment and treatment of caterers by the School Feeding Secretariat. The Ministry of Finance and Government are deplorable. They have worsened our economic, social, and health situations. Caterers have become indebted to the traders and farmers we credited items from. We are ashamed because we owe so much, have lost respect and our dignity in our communities.
All right, so many predicted this, that it was definitely coming. And these women who have been cooking for a number of months, probably years, say that they are in arrears. They themselves are being chased by their debtors. And because of that, they are also putting down their cooking utensils. No more cooking for the kids in school. William Evans Inkum, Ashanti Regional Correspondent, actually made this story quite a national conversation in the early days when it started. He's joined us via phone, I beg your pardon, via Zoom, to find out what exactly triggered this new dimension of the conversation. Evans, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
I know that when these caterers decided to go and see the regional minister in the Ashanti region, it did not end well. And on the back of that, they declared a sit-down strike. Now we are told that it is taking a national proportion. What information do you have about this?
Well, it was always going to take this shape because Ashanti region was only being used as the epicenter. One has to do with the fact that the ruling party has its one is a placenta here by way of roots. Then, of course, anytime the region is shaken, then the seat of government is also shaken. So they thought that once the whole thing was starting from here, it was going to change the narrative by way of the government responding to their concerns. But to them, it is even getting worse. The women within the past couple of weeks, some of them actually have been complaining that they are being chased out of their homes by their debtors. Some have vacated their homes, sleeping in places that are very unknown and very, very unnatural to their livelihood. And for that matter, they need to do this. So they believe that this one will send a very strong signal to the government that the national school feeding program, which was to ensure that the standard of education and, of course, equity in education is achieved as the country, develops, is actually grinding to a halt. And for that matter, the government will have to act swiftly. So I can tell you that here is the state experimental school. If you are a parent and you refuse to give your child money for food, all in the name of school feeding, then you are not only disappointing the child, but you are also affecting the child emotionally. You remember 2 weeks ago, we spoke to some of the peoples, and they expressed the dire consequences as far as this particular situation, what it's having on education and all of that, the academic business and all of that. And that's a typical situation we see here, especially where I find myself at the moment, state experimental.
Right, and Evans, we know that they tried to seek audience with the regional minister. Has that even ever happened? Have we had any other way of the minister responding to them? Have they had this conversation?
There hasn't been any response. So in the Ashanti region, we're talking about an of 600 caterers who are not working, and they are serving over 1,500 schools. But nothing is happening, and nobody is telling them anything.
All right, William Evans Inkum, thank you very much. Certainly, it's a very fluid situation. We'll be coming back to you subsequently for more on this. William Evans Inkum, Ashanti Regional Correspondent and Bureau Chief in the Northern Sector, helping us get a sense of the threat which is now being executed by these caterers in the Ashanti region, declaring a national strike. Let's come to the Greater Accra region. Kwame Amankwa is the organizer of the Greater Accra school feeding caterers, and he's also joined us via phone. Mr. Amankwa, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
I'm sure your members are also part of this nationwide strike. Is that the case?
Yes.
And what exactly is your story? Is it different from what's happening in the Ashanti region?
No difference at all. We are all caterers, the same caterers. The same feeling they are feeling in the Ashanti region is the same thing in Accra here.
And when you communicate with some of your other colleagues in other parts of the country, what exactly do they tell you? That they are also being owed in arrears and that they are also being chased by debtors and people who supply them with food items?
Yes, that's why I made mention. The same situation in Ashanti region is the same situation in Accra here.
Okay. So
we owe a lot of people. We owe a lot of people. When we are going to the market, you can't even go there. People will be asking you, where is my money? You've been taking my money for about 1 year ago, 6 months ago, you are not paying. You see, our problem in the school feeding, we are appealing to the government to come and help us. We
know that in the Ashanti region, they tried to speak to the regional minister. That didn't seem to go well. Here in the Greater Accra region, what have you tried to do to get government attention?
We've been going to the secretariat, most of the big people within the region. If we send our petitions to them without any response, that is why we are also on strike in Accra here.
And finally, how many are you? I'm talking about the caterers in Greater Accra. What's your number?
The number of Greater Accra, we are getting to 600.
To 600 caterers?
600 caterers in Accra, Greater Accra here.
And so you personally, how much are you owed? And in terms of, first of all, how many schools do you cook for? How many children do you cook for? How much are you owed personally? And how much do you owe your suppliers?
My supply, I owe the suppliers of about 36,000 Ghana cedis.
Okay. And so as it stands, you've not heard anything from government. Because of that, you are joining the national strike.
Yes, until we heard from the secretariat or the authorities of the national school feeding, we need increments about our students. Per student, as I'm speaking to you, per student is 97 pesos. And imagine we started this program 2017, and the amount they give to us is 97 pesos. And the items we are buying for the students we are cooking for them has been increased over 200%, and they are still giving us 97 pesos. Imagine.
Yeah. Okay.
Even one egg is 3 cedis now.
Okay. So my final question, Mr. Mankwa, is it that what you are given is not enough, for which reason you are unable to pay off your debtors, or you have been promised, you've gone for excess, and then the promise is not being fulfilled by government?
The amount they are giving to us is not enough.
Okay. Okay. Right. Mr. Mankwa, thank you. Kwame Mankwa is the organizer of the Greater Accra School Feeding Caterers Association, and they have also joined the nationwide strike, which has been declared a few minutes ago. From the Ashanti region, we are told that the situation is the same. Greater Accra is the same. We've been speaking to some of these caterers. One of them is Dorothy Sapong, who's been speaking to our correspondent about the impact of the non-payment and what it is also having in terms of impact on their livelihoods.
We've suspended it because we were asking our secretariat about 4 or 5 questions concerning our payments, and then the kind of non-quicking days that they deduct from our payments. They didn't explain anything to us, and now Mrs. Kwashiga is even provoking us. Mrs. Kwashiga is provoking us that this kind of job is a sacrificial job and is the work of God. And we want to tell her that God hasn't called us to come and preach to the children, and we cannot go and borrow to come and cook for the children for free. We are fed up. We want our money and we want an increment. And they should also stop telling the caterers that we don't have any right to talk. We want to tell her that we have every right, because we all work for the government to come to power. And so we need our money. We need it. Without the money, we are not going back to cook. It is because of Mrs. Kwashiga. She provoked us. And even the one queen mother among us, this woman was trying to tell us that because of experience,
when teachers went on strike, they didn't pay us. They said non-cooking days because of teacher strike. But now you are telling us to go and cook. Meanwhile, you know that the whole nation is on strike. And so I want to tell her that she should come back and tell us something good. We are not going to take whatever she told us. We are also very angry.
All right, so that's the big issue that we have for you. Now, our website, 3news.com, has details of a number of these stories, including the next big one we are going on to, which has to do with SIM re-registration, which has become quite topical in the country. And what we know is that if you use a mobile phone, you have a SIM number, be careful, because by the end of May next month, about 11 million subscribers will be deactivated. We'll give you details of that in a jiffy. Let's look at the other big headline we have for you, having to do with issues of Galamsey. Now, Professor Frimpong Boateng, we know, was exonerated of any wrongdoing following inquiries into his involvement in unlawful mining, according to the Commissioner of the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, Joseph Whittle. He, however, noted that any new accusations made against the heart surgeon would be looked into on a case-by-case basis.
Investigated allegations made against Prof. Frimpong Boateng. We went in and did a very thorough investigation, came out with our report, a 160-page report, and the upshot is that he was not involved in any illegal mining concessions. He had genuine concessions, which he had difficulty even starting the processing of those concessions because of community violence against his companies. The procedures of the Commission require first that we would undertake an assessment of the complaint, because it's not every complaint that is filed that actually meets the standards expected of a complaint that can be admitted for investigation. So we will do the assessment. We will determine which of the mandates, if any, have been invoked by the petition, after which, if there are any further and better particulars in terms of clarity of documents that will make us make up our mind, and we think so, we need them, we will require that of the complainant. And then we will undertake a preliminary investigation before we will determine whether we are going to request the respondents mentioned in the petition and the attached report to submit comments in respect of the allegations against them specifically. So that is the procedure.
All right, so I'm sure for those who've been following, you have the basis of this whole conversation having to do with the former Minister of Environment, Science and Technology and Innovation, Professor Frimpong Boateng's report to government, or the President through the Chief of Staff, which has generated different arguments and counter-arguments and accusations. So what we want to find out is that from the case the petition that was sent to SHRAJ in 2019 and the new one that has been sent to SHRAJ again by the MP Roxy Nelson Dafamepo, are there any similarities? The 2019 case, SHRAJ said they found nothing untoward against Professor Frimpong Boateng, but then there is a new presentation to him or petition to him. Martin Kwebu is a legal practitioner and has joined us for a quick conversation on this. Mr. Kwebu, very good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Martin.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you so much. To start with, I'm sure you've been following this whole conversation about the Galamsey report that Professor Frimpong Boateng submitted and the counter-accusations thereon. From the earlier petition where SHRAJ said they found nothing wrong with, and the new one, have you been able to see whether there are similarities in the case?
Oh, yeah. No, Martin, I've not been able to access the SHRAJ ruling yet. Maybe in the coming days, we would see it. So for now, I cannot comment on similarities.
But the current one that has been presented to SHRAJ, the Roxy Nelson Dafamepo's petition for SHRAJ to investigate whether there have been conflict of interest allegations and corruption accusations also raised. From where you said legally, are these grounds enough for SHRAJ to at least interrogate and probe this subject?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Because if you look at Article 218 of our Constitution, etc., Shraj has the mandate to do, it's a ombudsman. Previously, we used to say ombudsman, human rights commissioner, okay, threefold mandate, anti-corruption, administrative justice, you see, etc. So that is though we know the OSP also has a mandate to prosecute corruption, but the Shraj mandate also stands, and that's even enshrined in the Constitution. So it's good, and it shouldn't be a worry that we'll have two agencies dealing with corruption. In actual fact, we need more, because you see, with this, we can have different heads looking at the same issue. There is a lot of benefit to be derived from that. Sometimes you make one big organization, and it's very difficult to run very big organizations. So if you have them smaller, Shraj is here, has some numbers, OSP has some numbers, it's fine. So for me, I think it's okay that they've reported to Shraj, but it doesn't also stop any person from going to OSP. Okay. Because you see that the Shraj recommendations are not a judgment of the court by itself. I mean, this context, when they make the findings, those are administrative, right? And then subsequently, if you want to do a legal action, you still can do. Okay, and then sometimes there are also the things that Shraj goes to court to enforce its decisions. But basically, the investigation by Shraj does not stop any person from going to the OSP as well.
Right, and we know the presidency or some individuals at the presidency have also been named. Would it be your expectation that at least the President of the Republic or leadership of the executive says something more concrete or some concrete action be taken, although submissions have been made to Shraj, for instance, and the OSP being called on to investigate this?
Oh, so you mean they should
the executive be more involved in this or take some more action, although state institutions are investigating?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That's to be expected. You see, when I say that's to be expected, meaning that there are some of those that Professor Frimpong Boateng has presented some evidence. So those that he's presented some evidence directly, I think that in the meantime, the president can ask them to step aside. You see the back and forth between him and Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. You see, he annexed evidence. Joy FM did a documentary of that site where he says Kojo Oppong Nkrumah is involved and all that. Yeah, so for those that some pictorial documentary evidence is being presented, I think those people should be made to step aside, because at least there's been some evidence linking them. And so once we have so many talented people who can do this job, you don't need that person to continue in office as a minister whilst he's facing investigations by Shraj and all that. No, he should step aside so that he does it, so that he's not distracted, so that he can go and present a full defense to Shraj, and also it kind of rehabilitates the government a bit, so that people will stop pointing accusing fingers at the president. So all those officers should be asked to step aside, especially those for whom some documentary evidence has been provided. And I think Kojo Oppong Nkrumah is number one, and the other people.
Okay. Counsel, thank you so much for your thoughts as always. Happy to hear them from you. Martin Pebu is a private legal practitioner, sharing his thoughts on this, never-ending subject of Galamsey and the recent report from Professor Frimpong Boateng to government about what transpired when he was the chairman of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, and also the reactions that have, come up as a result of his report. In 2019, however, a private citizen also petitioned Shraj and asked Shraj to investigate allegations of conflict of interest of Professor Frimpong Boateng himself. You would recall that in the entire narrative, he was said to have supervised the disappearance of some excavators, numbering between 200 and 500. He says those allegations were not true. In fact, he was also accused that his son was involved in illegal mining, an accusation he also denied. So the 2011 petition to Shraj investigated and came up with its findings. I'm going to take you through the main issues, first of all, that were raised by or pointed out to Shraj, and then Shraj's response to them. This is the first issue, that whether the grant of prospecting license to the Symphony Limited. And first of all, let me make this caveat. Symphony Limited is a company owned by Professor Frimpong Boateng and his wife, and then they later offloaded some of the shares of that company to their son. So it's a family company. Now, we're going back to that slide, and it says that, so you get to know when I say Symphony Limited. So whether the grant of prospecting license to Symphony Limited in the Japekrom areas, namely Renem, Asiri, Japekrom, Bebiaraneha, and Ademensu, if any, is contrary to the stated objects of the company. So here they are questioning whether or not he had the right license to prospect. 2, whether the respondent, and the respondent in this case is Professor Frimpong Boateng's company, is holding on to 5 mining concessions despite indicating that it is no longer interested in the 3 mining concessions of Renem, Asiri, and Japekrom. So a bit of background to that, there are 5 mining concessions which are owned by Symphony Limited. And out of that 5, we saw a letter that the company wrote to the Minerals Commission that they are offloading 3 of them. So they are still holding on to 2. And so they are finding out whether they are, as a company, still holding on to all that 5. And that is the second issue. The third one that is coming onto your screens in a jiffy also says they want to find out, this is the issue, whether the respondent, Professor Frimpong Boateng, engaged in corruption or abuse of power by having his company, Symphony Limited, hold on to the 5 mining concessions despite the company's failure or refusal to pay the state the necessary annual mineral right fees. So when you have a concession, there is an amount you are supposed to be paying to the state. He has 5, but the concern here is that he wasn't paying the necessary royalties or the right fees to the state. So that was another issue that was raised. To the fourth one now, it says whether the respondent, Professor Frimpong Boateng, has caused financial loss to the state owing to the company's refusal or failure to pay to the state the necessary annual mineral right fees, similar to issue 3, which I raised. And the fifth one of the issues that was found out by Shraj is that they want to find out whether or not the respondent, Professor Frimpong Boateng, put himself in a conflict of interest position when he was chairman of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, regulators of, and to regulate the activities of illegal mining, and whether he had shareholdings and dictatorship of the company that holds 2 mining concessions and has subsequently failed to visit the concession with a task force. Now, here's a point of note. The Interministerial Task Force visited a number of mining sites, but it looks as though his own personal, or the one that was for his company, he didn't take the mining company, the ministerial committee, to his mining site, although he visited others. So the concern is, why do you go to others and leave your mining concession? So let's go to the findings that Shraj made. They said that 1, Symphony Limited, that's the company of Professor Frimpong Boateng, is not holding on to all the 5 concessions, but only Ademesu and Bibiara Neha concessions, so only 2 out of the 5. 2, the respondents did not engage in any act of corruption or abuse of power by having his company hold on to the 2 concessions, despite the failure by Symphony Limited to pay to the state annual mineral rights. So he didn't pay, although he had to. 3, the respondent has not caused any financial loss to the state of about $250,000 annually. As of 2020, Symphony Limited was in arrears of $82,344 and $109,354,000 in respect of annual mineral rights fees for the Ademesu and Biberaneha, respectively, to be paid to the Minerals Commission. All right, so that's another finding. To the extent that the respondent was not part of the governing board of the EPA, which granted the environmental permit to Symphony Limited, he did not put himself in a position where his personal interest conflicted or was likely to conflict with the performance of the functions of his office. So here they are saying that he did not influence whether or not he had the rights to own the. He influenced whether he got the mining rights to go and prospect at any site in the forest. So that's what went to Shraj in 2019. A new petition has been sent. This time around, the difference between the old one and the new one is that this one, they are asking the Shraj to investigate the people who have been named in the report of Professor Frimpong Boateng and other adjoining matters. Our website, 3news.com, has details of all of this that I've said, and then we can also continue the conversation on our various social media platforms. Do let us have a way of building the Ghana we want. Okay, so we've done a lot of mining and the illegalities or legalities associated to that. Let's go to issues regarding SIM card registration, because if you use a mobile phone or you have a mobile line, you may be affected. Service to 11 million mobile phone subscribers will be deactivated by the 31st of May 2023. Subscribers can visit mobile network operators to delink unknown numbers which have been registered with Ghana cards from the 1st of May. The NMOs will implement uniform short code to check number of SIMs linked to a Ghana card. And simply what they are saying is that if you have a Ghana card and you do not know how many SIMs have been registered with your Ghana card, from the 1st of May, a short code will be given that you can use to check. And then when you go to the mobile number provider or your telco, they can deactivate or delink those numbers from your Ghana card. Let's speak to Crosby Annan, my colleague, who's been sitting through the presser that took place a few minutes ago by the regulator of the sector, that's the NCA, National Communications Authority. Crosby, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. What is the process for delinking SIMs from, Ghana cards if the authorization is given?
Right, Martin, thanks for having me. So on the 1st of May, beginning the 1st of May 2023, MNOs, mobile network operators, they will be required to implement a unified short code to check the number of SIM cards linked to the Ghana card. And that short code is *402*1#. *402*1#. So if you are an individual and you have experienced or you think that your Ghana card has been used to register multiple SIM cards. Remember that in the past weeks, we've heard people complaining about they finding out that their Ghana cards have been used to register multiple SIM cards without their knowledge, up to the 10 deadline or the 10 number that is required. So if that has happened to you, beginning the 1st of May 2023, you could use the *402*1# to check if your Ghana card has been used to register multiple SIM cards. If that is the case, then you can proceed to go to your mobile network operator and ask that it be delinked, and ask that these numbers, you don't know these numbers, these ABCD numbers, you don't know them, you don't use the numbers, so you ask that they delink them, and the mobile network operators will be required to delink them, Martin.
And I'm sure this is in collaboration with the mobile network operators, but
right.
What systems have been put in place to prevent numbers that are not linked from being deactivated as happened previously?
So, Martin, what is going to happen is from the 31st of May 2023, this is what will happen. Over 11 million unregistered SIM cards will be deactivated from all databases in the country. 11 million of them will be deactivated. But for those who genuinely do not have their Ghana card, and that has been the reason why they have not been able to register their SIM cards, either the first registration or the second phase of the registration, what they can do is to prove that they really do not have their Ghana card. If they're able to prove the absence of a Ghana card or their inability to acquire a Ghana card, then their SIMs will not be deactivated. We're also seeing for Ghanaians who are in the diaspora, who are on particular missions outside the country, and as a result may not be able to, register their SIM cards, go through the two-phase registration of their SIM cards. They will also be spared. So some allowance or some caveat has been given for people who do not have their SIM cards, and those who for some reason are not able or are not in the jurisdiction of the country to be able to register their SIM cards, Martin.
Right, okay. Finally and briefly, we know that MTN Zone, which many complained about, we are told is being brought back. What briefly do you know about this?
So the NCA took notice of an irregularity in the market. MTN is a significant market power because of the population that it controls. So as a result, they are not required to be the least affordable. They are not required to provide the least affordable services. They should not be the lowest. They should be in tandem with the other network operators. But in beginning January 2023, the NCA took notice of an irregularity in the work of MTN. So they wrote to them and had engagements with them, and that is related to the zone bundles. It was the lowest on the market at that time. So MTN had no choice than to withdraw that bundle. But with engagement with MTN and other relevant stakeholders, MTN has revised the zone bundle prices such that it will not be the lowest or the least affordable. So in the coming months, in the coming days, MTN is expected to make it available to the public again because it does meet the standards of the NCA, Martin.
All right. Thank you very much, Noble Crosby, and giving us an update from that meeting that ended a few minutes ago between the NCA, giving an update on SIM re-registration and the concerns that have been raised, and also the issues about the MTN zone. However, the *402 *1# that he gave is going to be effective the 1st of May. So don't try using it now.